Okay, thanks for joining today's call. I would like to spend the first 10 minutes just to go through the implementation issues. I would like Derek and Malakwan to take lead to share what are the challenges they might have and what issues they resolve so that we know those has been addressed. So Derek and Malakwan, do you guys want to take over now?
Yeah, I think Malakwan will start. I can only then I'll add on maybe what he will miss.
Okay.
Okay. We are preparing for luck. We are preparing for luck rollout. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we did. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So at the moment we are preparing for luck rollout. We hope most probably it will be next week. A couple of setting devices at least is underway. But one of the major challenges is device management. The server side is still not yet working well. The save button. I called the developer Sam Bogwat today and he told me to raise a ticket for the same. So one of the challenges I'm facing the same like issues back and forth. Another issue we are having is the SSL certificate for LAC VM and production server. We upgraded. We renewed the SSL certificate that had expired with the Vic Miencha did the production side, and Victor assisted me on the LAC VM, but apparently it's like the certificate are not working as expected.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. Even though you guys say that you apply the updates, but it's still showing that it's expired. So it needs to be addressed with Augustin's team.
Okay, so that is what we have been looking at today.
So what happened is that it prevents the team to authenticate with the LAC VM server as well as the AMR's production server. However, in the meantime, teams should use the mUzima test server in the cloud for testing purpose so that things can still be moving.
Noted, Edda.
Okay.
Yes. So, Derek, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think as per what you've said, is all about ticket 235, which is the main blocker for LAC. And maybe another thing that will be main blocker for LAC is the community units that are supposed to be also coded on OpenMRS production server. I came to find, just like Eda had mentioned some yesterday, that some of the community units are actually existing. About 4 or 5 are the ones that are missing from the list. So this morning I met with the PET, who is the forms and concepts lead, and she told me that she was working on that, and she was just finding some stuff like whether one of the dispensaries named Coquette dispensary would be maybe be used as a community unit. I tried to explain to that maybe there's a difference between a community unit and a dispensary, or else maybe if the team would agree that let Coquette dispensary unit be used, then it has to be. But I came to discover that Coquette is there just as a location, so there's no word dispensary. Which I told them, I think the community, the would use that as while they'll be working, because there's no word dispensary that is included, because that can represent their community unit. About the, I think those are the only issues. I was talking to Rotich last evening and told him maybe for us to do training and rollout, we'll need definitely bundles for all the SIM cards. We'll need the devices to be set up, of which we're doing that. And I think he's in a position to do that. And the training manuals are also in place. So far, so good. Only the two that were earlier mentioned, that would be the only blockers. That's all from my side.
So can I go back to the community unit issue? So just when looking back, we first asked for the community unit name and ID back in early January. We are not sure where what actually was the issues for the delay for like 6 weeks. So when we asked back, we checked with the system administration team. They told us that they actually got the request a week ago. And there was a confusion in the request. They thought that the request is to activate the units for the patient address as a patient address field in Starlight and Canada location. So that was the hold up for another week. So we just clarified all these things, sorted out yesterday. Everyone on the same page now. So Augustine agreed to create a committee unit for those 4 additional ones and request Roteach team to provide additional information about the other metadata about this committee unit, like which county, which subdivision, and things like that. So as soon as those information are provided, Augustine team can go ahead and create those. So it'll be good that Derek and Marquand, you guys follow up and make sure those information are provided to Augustine team so that things will get those created.
Yeah. Who's responsible for following up between the two of them?
Oh, hi, Martin.
I think we can do that. Malakwen can take that up as I also give a hand in the same. If that might work. What do you think, Malakwen?
Yes, I'm okay with that because the request actually for generating the community units arrived at the system admin desk at least 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks or 1.5 weeks ago. So that is something that should have already been done. In fact, I requested that they could assist me. They could show me how to create one, then I could create the rest if the task was big. But I will follow up with that.
Yeah, creating them is relatively simple. It's just a name and additional address information about the committee unit. The only challenge is what we need those additional information about the committee unit before we can create it. So those information need to be provided by the LAC team since they know the committee unit.
Yes.
Yeah, I think on the same ticket, Rotich did post the community units on it.
Only the
and
name. Only the
the
name.
concept team are aware.
Yeah, only the name, but not the county subdivision and other information.
I think we're gonna work on that with Malakwen.
Sure.
Yeah, I think what's a little bit frustrating to the other members of the team is something like this, which is relatively simple, taking a long time, and the feeling that we have obviously people who are the implementing people on the ground to help move some of these things. So again, the recommendation there is both Malakwen and Derek is, we know what needs to be done. Let's get the comprehensive answers instead of piecemeal answers done, and also in a timely fashion, because there really isn't there's no point complicating what doesn't need to be complicated.
Awesome.
So Martin, to answer your question on the chat, so the other issues for the linkage and retention form, Roteach has tested the linkage form and provided feedback. There's a couple minor cosmetic changes in terms of the wording on the questions and mutually exclusive for certain answers. he also add additional requests about displaying a reminder. I'm not really sure what that means, so I already asked him to provide more information. That is the feedback for the linkage form after the testing. They plan to provide the feedback for the retention form testing.
Thanks, Eda. So I saw that input. So are they saying that the videos are displaying well, and are they saying that the logic works well beyond the comments that he made?
Yeah.
For at least the one form. Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to confirm on that.
Yeah, that's the same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other point we'd also want to make to them very soon, and we've been pretty liberal, is, we will stop any final changes or comments to adjust things moving forward, because it's very easy to keep on this cycle where new suggestions keep getting made and we never get to a finalized form.
Yeah, the last comment suggestion I consider as a new additional feature because it wasn't included in the original request.
Exactly. Okay. And I mean, if it's reasonable, we can do it, but we need to make a statement that, we don't want any further changes on the form because, we won't be done.
Yeah, to me, it was a new request. I just want to make sure I understand it's a new request because it wasn't really clear on his comment. I just want him to say that it's a new request, so we can just say that, hey, rephrase that, yeah.
Okay. So the other question was on the costing form. Do you feel we're in a good place with that?
For the costing form,
there are a few changes.
Yeah,
we down and things like that.
Yeah, the costing form, we got the provider IDs now, and they also need to give us the community. So the way that Manu did, he create concepts for the committee unit. So the committee units end up storing as ops. That's the only difference. And so when they deal with the data later on, I think they just need to look at different places to get the academic location information.
Okay. So from a development standpoint, other than the community units, the costing form is down.
Yeah, so we still need to update the coded, because they also asked to rephrase some of the answers, because like some of the questions is open-ended questions, and now they want to change the coded, and so they come up with a list, and those need to be revised. Also, originally everyone had the same provider ID for the different users. So they provide an updated list, and those are the remaining programming tasks. So just like maybe 3 major ones: updating the code answers, and then updated the provider ID, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Eda. And then one final question to Malakwen. So we have a lot of things on the error queue right now for mUzima. Any comments on that? Maybe you guys have discussed this before.
We checked this morning. I raised a ticket for this. And then we checked yesterday with our developer, mUzima developer, and one of the findings we realized was most of the data in the error queue is test data, most of them. So maybe the team can advise on how to handle the same.
What do you think, Malakwen? Because you're the implementation guy. Sorry, I'm just no. I think it's important for you guys to try to get to a level where you can also start thinking independently.
Maybe
okay, maybe let me comment. When we looked at the data, we found out that some of the issues causing the error queue was due to the kind of data that was inputted. For example, some of the provider IDs that were specified were not existing in the MRS database, and therefore that data could not be processed. And we checked on the form. We also checked some of the patient records that were being mentioned on those forms. And also we looked at the kind of data that was being inputted. Somehow the data shows some pattern, some repeating pattern, and it was coming kind of from the same person or from the same group of people who are undergoing some training. So we identified them and our recommendation was that if clearly it's test data, then it's supposed to be deleted from the database instead of being processed.
Okay. So have you confirmed for sure that it's test data? Because you know the individual is.
Yes,
Sorry, guys.
most
I
of
know I'm putting you guys on the spot here. So you've confirmed that it's for sure test data.
Yes, we checked. The majority of the data is test data. What I'm not sure is what happens for that kind of data if we have looked at it and we confirm it is test data. I don't know what happens if we have to also consult somebody else to delete the information or to do a counter check. I don't know what happens in that case.
Well, my suggestion would be that you talk to the LAC folks. They have a data manager, right? Okay. So
yes,
I wouldn't want to delete data from their system without going through them to say yes, this data needs to be deleted from the system. So that's the first thing I would do. And if they decide that it needs to be deleted from the system, then it seems to me that most likely survive. Either you can suggest or even win. But it seems like survive would be the person who would do that query, right?
Yeah, we keep emphasizing that we should not use the production to have so many test data. If you really want to do test data, you need to use the test patient so that it's easy for us to sort it out.
Yes. So just to go back, Ed, I will talk about that in a moment. But from where we are right now, it will be survive who would delete that, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So I think it needs to have the particular project team to go through just to make the data manager to make sure that those are real test data, and then we should just delete them.
Okay. And again, so this is 2 months or so out since we had stuff in the error queue. So it goes back to the question about why this was not uncovered earlier, which is a separate conversation. But is there a ticket that has already been raised for this issue?
yes, there is a ticket for the same.
And it's been updated with your findings? I presume that's a no. But so again, twice today, the issue of updating tickets or creating tickets has come up. So again, just for the Kenyan team, please, let's not have the developers or Eda or Win kind of repeating the same thing, because it's a little bit frustrating for them, and everyone is working pretty hard. Okay, and then to go back to what Eda said again, just a basic implementation thing is one. You don't put a server in production, just like you don't have test users in production and things like that. And I think this has come up a couple of times already. Okay.
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 Anything the folks on the Kenyan side need from Eda or Sahaj that hasn't already been brought up?
None from me, much has been mentioned earlier.
Sounds good. I hope that everyone can update the ticket with clear updates so that we can communicate through there. And I also found the daily scrum really helpful for us to clarify any unclear updates, either through email or Jira. It really helps us to cut down the communication time and email threads.
Okay.
So if there's no other comments about the implementation topic, so we move to the agenda item for discussing household. Okay, so just we mentioned earlier this week that we would like to focus on two things this upcoming month. One is collect household data and processing them through mUzima. And another topic is how we can do a better job in redesigning the UI for resolving the error queue. So let's talk about the household topic first. Maybe I can give some background here so that Sahaj developers also can understand a bit better why we need that. So for MPath implementation, we have a program called Home-Based Counseling and Testing Program. So we send the providers to the household and to collect information about the household as in addition to the household member. So since the household members share the same household characteristics and information, let's say that the household income, or like how many acres of land that you have under this household, and how many cows you have under this household, and things like that. So it does not make sense for us to collect the same type of questions about the household on an individual level. So that's why we need to be able to collect household encounters and household observations. And then from there, we also need to have a linkage that to identify who are the household members belong to the same household. So that is one of the major area that we will want to focus for upcoming development efforts to focus on this part. And currently, we use the household module and also ODK for collecting this information, but we want to mimic something similar in mUzima so that we can use that to continue this effort. And on Wednesday, we have a design call to go through this, and Burke threw out a suggestion that how about something called cohort observation or cohort encounter, so we even consider that route instead of just so that it also, because when you think about it, it's also like describing a cohort, a list of people. So I think it just opened up like different ways how we should move forward. Wayne, do you have anything to add? Hey, Wayne?
Wayne is still asleep. Wake up, Wayne.
He probably on mute.
Yeah, I think before going there, I want to see if we can, I think I mentioned this in the Wednesday discussion, Ada. I think we need to decide if we're going to go, if we're trying to synchronize the way we design and create form. That way, when we need to, so when we need to design the household form, we will have a household form that can be used for a longer term. We don't want to create the household form and then we ended up going another way with the form designing approach. I don't know. I guess it's open for discussion.
Yeah. When I'm not sure I completely understand your last statement. when you say going with a different form designing approach, are you talking about the Angular stuff that people have been talking about?
Yeah, that was what I kind of worried about. If we ended up going with the Angular, so we can accommodate JJ and we can use the HTML form designer. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Could I also just chip into this conversation a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm sorry I couldn't make the design call because I was traveling. I've just shared with you, at least on the dev list, kind of what my thoughts are on the household stuff. Okay. And again, this is from an undeveloper standpoint. But the first thing you realize right now is our PHCT form obviously has, on the same form, it has individual level data and household level data. Okay. So my initial suggestion obviously is to separate those completely. Okay. And so you fill the household information as just a household form, and then you potentially figure out how to fill in the related individual information after that, and potentially injecting whatever is needed from the household form to the individual form, whether it's household ID or let's say the name of the head of household. And the reason why I'm suggesting that to be done is if, I don't want to create a household module that's so closely tied to what Empathy is doing right now, because we want to create something more generic. And so if you, start designing it for a form that has both individual and household level stuff, you quickly get into generalizability issues as soon as other people want to use it. So my first question to the tech people on this call is, what do you think of that approach at a higher level, first of all?
Personally, I like the separation, because that way it's going to be, I don't know, it's much easier to design the form if we separate it. And then linking the form data between household and the individual member of the household, I think it's going to be doable, because I mean, we need to test this approach, but it's going to be similar on how we relate the registration form data with the subsequent encounter form data submitted for that newly registered patient. So I think we potentially could do a similar approach for the household, where the initial household top level data, all the bed nets, how many cows you have, all of those will become the first. You can think of it as the registration, and then the individual member will be similar to the encounter for the registration form data. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
When I'm a little bit confused. So, so the individual data within a household will still be saved the way we save our current individual encounters, right?
Correct.
So, the way I want to think about, how household data itself is one kind of, now just saying, the household registration information, which would be just a very limited set of core information about a household, almost the same as individual. Okay. And then the second part, like additional information, almost like an encounter type of stuff for household, because what you'll find is one, there are different types of household information that need to be collected based on the use case. Okay. So you'll find for HCT, they'll collect a particular type of household information. If it's an economic assessment, they'll collect household type of information, different types of household information. And so you can imagine having different household encounter forms, okay, that have nothing to do with individual, and still separate individual level data to be the same way that we treat individual level data right now already. That individual level data might have some element of household ID in there, but my suggestion would be we just process it the way we are processing it right now. Am I making sense? Or are we on, no, are we on the same page there?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. The other thing that we probably need to have a look at is how much dependency does the individual member have with regard to the top level household? Can we have like a clear separation, or are they dependent on each other? Like to fill this part of the form, it's going to depend on the value that you fill on the top level household.
So when in my notes which I provided, I actually kind of started addressing that too. Okay, so I think within mUzima at this point we have to start implementing a workflow type of thing, similar to what Louis did. Okay, so household individual forms are going to be the natural ones where we're going to apply this. But basically, what will happen is, we set some rules saying, after you've finished this form, the next logical form, let's say after you finish the household form, the next logical form in this workflow is filling the individual form, okay? And these are the data elements that need to be injected onto that individual form. And then, you kind of do the individual forms. After you are done within a workflow, let's say with the individual, you ask, should you fill another individual linked to the same household, or should you go back to the household information to fill in another household form, okay? Now, that approach is going to actually apply a lot of times beyond household individual. So that workflow model to fill in forms. And so it seems to me that that's another piece of work we have to think a little bit more comprehensively about in terms of, you have a form that's been designed, okay, and then you say, does it depend on the workflow part, or do we incorporate some workflow components to it? And so let's say you say, okay, we have a household form. Well, the workflow is after it's done, do this, and then next, after individual form is done, do this. So we need to separate, in my mind, basically, or we need to start thinking about developing an independent and reusable workflow process for our forms moving forward. And this would be a first use case for it. I don't know what people think.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking on the workflow is like to create a household first, and then have the head of household, and then all the household members. After that part is completed, because we want to capture all the demographic data for everyone in the household first. And then it would go to the household form. After the household form, it would go to, so that and then the workflow that, so that we know, let's say that when we register, there's 5 clients in the same household, and then it would pop to another screen having like those 5 individual names and related forms for them to fill out, so that we don't need to go and search and miss anything. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So, my sense is if we want to cleanly separate household from individual, okay, I'd say that, the household form just becomes an independent entity. And then when you're done with it, like you fill the household, you say, open the individual registration form or fill encounters for individuals, okay? If those individuals don't exist, we just go through the same workflow of registering the individual and filling the individual encounter information and going around. So, instead of like inventing a workflow that's very specific to HCT, we actually just use the framework that we have in terms of doing individual level data. The only thing is having that information called in after you fill the household information, and also being able to inject some data from the household form, which are linked to the individual form. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some questions. This is Shweta.
Go ahead, Shweta.
Yeah, just coming from the background of, I'm not really sure if I understand about So this is a situation where, let's say, there's is a family considered a household?
It could be different definitions. It maybe live under the same roof or like eating from the same pot. So the definition of household would be different from different program.
Okay. So when you say household form, you're basically collecting some generic information, and after that you collect some generic information about a household, and then you fill in for each individual in that household. Is that how it works?
Yes. So I think Eda says a couple of things that are important. I think the first one is one. There are many types of classic household encounters. Meaning, you could go to a household and say, I want to collect information about their wealth, right? As a like if I'm looking at this household, this is the information I want to collect. Another time, you could go to the household and collect information about, let's say, how close they are to a water supply. Okay, this is, but I'm completely separating the information that is specific to a household from the information about the individuals in the household. Okay, now in my mind, a household module by itself, because a household module actually has to be a fully independent entity from the individual level stuff. Okay, so you might get to a place, at least within mUzima, where someone is not interested in individual level information. They just want to collect household information, or even just have the household tab without the individual level tabs are done. So what I'm saying is, we creating a modular kind of fully independent household module. Okay. Now, part of collecting information when you go to a household could be to collect individual information about the individuals in that household. Now, remember, in my mind, that information could be collected independent of collecting household information. I could walk into a household and say, okay, this household has someone called Martinwari. Open that form for the individual and fill it the way we do it right now. Okay, and so what I'm trying to at least suggest is, let's separate the information that's very specific to a household from the information that's about the individuals in the household. Okay, now the information about the individuals in the household, we treat it exactly like we're treating all the other stuff we're doing in terms of forms. Okay, and then the information about the household is what actually needs to be created afresh, because there are a little bit more details about the household once you get into it. And then if we say, this household has individuals for whom we need to collect the information, that's why I'm saying using a workflow type of mechanism where you can connect the household to its individuals. Okay, so for example, you could presumably have a couple of fields in the table for household that says who are the individuals in that household, that just the individual IDs as you're creating them or something like that. Or, but that still becomes quite independent from the individual level information. Am I making sense, or am I just in my crazy world?
No, it makes sense. But what I'm really curious about is finding out how are you going to be using the data when you're reading the data. How are you going to be using the data? Would it be like, for example, I don't know if this is the right comparison to make, but when we create a cohort of, let's say, all the CDM patients, we basically group them together because they have a particular condition or a symptom which is common amongst them, and that's why we make them into a cohort, right? And similarly, a household is just a group of individuals they belong to a particular household. So when I go and search for cohorts, it shows me all the people that are part of this cohort. How would we be using the information once we collect the household data, and then we get individual information, each of the individuals who belong to that household, we collect their data, and then what do we do with the data? How is it going to be used?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important point. So, and basically your point is, on the display side of the household module, what would you what would you expect? Okay, so typically the way the data is used, or at least would be used on the mobile device, is when you're going back to that household, okay, to visit, you want to be able to know who's within the household and fill particular follow-up forms for those individuals, okay? And so you can imagine a display where, a particular health worker or community health worker has a number of households they are responsible for, okay? So the cohort will be those households, okay? And as you're pulling that household information, you could also pull the relevant information for the individuals in that household, meaning their core demographics, the way we usually do it. And in my mind, it would still be the same way we do individual level information. And then you pull the core household information plus the links to the individual IDs that are in that household, okay? And then basically use that to display, okay? So the display will be, okay, these are the number of households that fall under this care provider. When they click on a household, these are the individuals within that household. The OBS for those individuals should be displayed the way we always display the OBS once you click on it. And then you can fill in a form for the individuals, let's say a follow-up form for each of the individuals once you get to them. Does that help at all?
Yes.
I don't know, Eda and Win, if I'm representing that correctly.
Yeah. Win and I have a side chat while you guys talking about this. So Win actually suggests maybe we should think of like a household wizard. So maybe step one, just to choose a household type, and then step two, like create the head of household. Step three is like fill out the household form, and then step four is searching whether the household member already existed or not. If they don't exist in the system, create just go through a regular registration process and then fill out the required individual forms, and then just go through the same cycle until all the members are complete. So this way, it's just easier for the users know that, hey, this is really complete or not. Instead of like go and try to search here, it's just there. So that's the one suggestion from Win.
So Ida, can households be created from mUzima? Are you saying that?
Not right now. This is something that we would like to do. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, like Mark explained, like the healthcare worker would just walk into a household and say, I'm going to create a new household, and depending on which program, like LARC, whatever, etc., the other programs, each will have a different household form. And there are different kinds of household forms. We download them, and then we create a household, and then we add individuals to it in the workflow.
Pretty much. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, but in my mind, adding individuals to a household is really just linking individuals to households. The individual level information should just work the way it currently works. Okay. So it's really just creating the link and maybe injecting a couple of pieces of information from the household to the individual form, because the individual forms in this case will have the household ID and also the head of household. Okay, so really those are the two things that will be linking those two forms.
Right.
Okay. I think we need to go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so as soon as you start thinking about it, obviously, basically a lot of the things about household will go through the same things we did for individuals, right? So it can get very complicated very fast in terms of, how do you update household information? How do you delete, making sure that the individual. So there's, as soon as you start thinking about it, it actually gets a little bit complicated. But in my mind, it's almost the same as what we've done for individuals, with just a couple of things that need to be thought about.
So,
okay, and then also error resolution for household, passing of the household on the server side, things like that.
Yeah, the same thing. So when I think of that, I also thought about like updating or like removing, members from one household and then assign to a different household, things like that. Would that be something we can take care through the registration update form, when would that be something that is technically possible to do it?
No, it's going to be more than that, Ada, because the registration form, the update for demographic is purely just trying to update um, the demographic information. So we're not doing any call to the household module because,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can see it's going to get quite complicated once we roll out.
Well, I'd say this, okay, for version 1, because all these things are just, what's the minimal stuff you need to do to get stuff done. So for version 1, I'd say if you want to delete or do anything with the household, let's do it on the server side, okay? That users cannot do it on the device, okay? That way, it's just a lot smoother. In the future, we can add the functionality to change things, but I think it will become very complicated if you try to do a version 1 with all that stuff being done on the phone side. Am I making sense?
Yeah, as long as I think I agree with the first pass. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if the way you delete households, it will be the same way we delete concepts right now on the device. Okay, because if you want to remove a concept from the device, you have to make sure that there are no dependencies on it, if I remember correctly, right? So it's something similar. But
when you
a lot of that is
do you mean like household type, right? When you say delete, similar to
yeah,
concept.
suppose I decide that this household actually doesn't exist and it's connected to individuals, right? If I'm doing it on the device and I say, please delete this household, okay? Then I have to make sure that there are no individuals associated with that household. Just like if you're trying to delete a concept, we have to make sure that there are no observations associated with the concept, something similar. But that's more of a future task than an immediate task because, as you're saying, it just gets a bit complicated.
Yeah. So I know that we are getting closer to the call time, end of call time. So can we just summarize maybe the immediate action item? So would it be appropriate for us just to come up with a proposed workflow first? And then from there to get some kind of agreement before we list out all these technical specifications?
Yes. What I'd suggest, Eda, is I think both you and Wayne taking a look at what I've shared, okay, and maybe putting it on a like Google Drive or something where others can edit or see it, and then you can kind of make adjustments on it because it already kind of highlights some of the things that we are discussing right now and some of the potential complications. And then once we settle on that as a team internally, and I think Shweta and others can also take a look at it, we can then decide what the next step is. The good thing here is we have a practical example, which is PHCT, that we can actually implement this with and at least demonstrate what works without being too abstract.
How are we going to prevent like duplicate household registrations? Like I thought right now, to prevent duplicate individuals from being registered, we're going to be using the fingerprinting. So how would we prevent duplicate households? Do we use the household head's fingerprint? Is that something that we're thinking about doing?
No, Shweta, that's actually a very good point. Remember, the head of household can have multiple households.
Oh.
So, welcome to Kenya. Yeah, I think in the first pass for me, I do it the same way we are doing with that fingerprints right now. Basically, kind of remember before, just some basic matching algorithm stuff, just basic stuff. To just highlight whether it's a potential duplicate or not. Like, we have a household with the same household, head of household, or things like that. It won't be as robust as the individual part, okay? So, so you search it on the device, and then if you don't have it, you go search it on the server. But I think in version 1, that's all we can do. I don't know what Win and Eda think.
Yeah. I have the same thought. Yeah, Wayne?
Yeah, we probably need to stick with a simpler approach for now.
So Shrita, you'd basically take the same thing we're doing for individuals currently in terms of matching, and just put it to connect to the household table list with some very basic matching.
Okay.
Yeah, I will not do anything extra from that because people, sometimes register to more than one household and then with the same household type too. So
Okay, so maybe Ed and Win, if you can comment on that and also put in what you guys discussed on Wednesday with Bart, that might be a good first start. And then making it available for everyone to take a look at would make sense.
okey-dokey. Just wonder if Malakwan and Simon might have anything to add because they closed the implementation. I just wonder if they have anything to add.
And okay, I have nothing to add because well, I'm trying to also understand how this household works. So I think I've understood and up to that point, yeah.
Okay, good. Derek, Malakwan, do you guys have things to add?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, thanks. So just FYI for everyone, I think it's almost time, but we put in a couple Google Summer of Code project ideas. One is about expand the cohort, and the other one is offline HTML form renderer. The former is led by Simon, and then the other one is led by Wayne. So it'd be nice if you guys can take some time just to look at the project page and try to help us to refine the project idea by early next week, so that we can submit it. I'm going to share the links with through the listserv, and I hope that everyone can chime in and give us some feedback. Anyone have anything to add or to comment before we wrap this up?
Ada, actually, I had a question.
Sure.
I'm working on this Jira where we download the location and providers from the server instead of hard coding them in the form. So one of the things I noticed is there are going to be changes on the form because right now we are hard coding everything.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, like, when can I get those changes so I can test against the changes?
So what I have in mind is that instead of like hard coding all those provider and location information, we can search on demand so that we can add those and download it to the device. And then somehow we need to be able to say that, hey, I want to have the following list of providers, and those download the provider information, I want those information to be injected in the encounter form. I don't know if something is possible to do it. Another option is like to have the defaulted login user to be the provider information and then inject it to the form, which I think we can already implement that. But the only challenge is that when the user doesn't have the provider role, and then that would not work. Let's say that I log in as a super user, and I don't have any privilege or role as a provider. Even though I use the option saying that, hey, I'm the default encounter provider, that function doesn't really work. So I think we need to add another check on that part, an enhancement, just to show that only the login user who have the provider privilege to be able to enable this function.
So actually, I was looking at the form. So right now, are we I think are we hard coding the name of the center or the whatever healthcare
Yeah,
location
location and the providers, yes, both.
as
Yeah,
well?
for this one, I think we need a JavaScript interface which will search on the Android side, Suita. So instead of searching on that hard-coded array list of providers, the search will be done against whatever provider gets downloaded into the device. So we need to have the JavaScript interface communicating between the form and the Android side.
So, Vin, a quick question here. Let's say I'm talking about the breast, for example, let's talk about the breast cancer screening form, right? And let's say for that particular form, there are 8 locations associated with the form. So I'm assuming that when the HTML of the form will have at least those 8 IDs or the UUID, what would it have that I should use to search on my device? Something to identify that particular location.
I think we should search by name.
Search by name on the device.
Yes.
So the names will be hard coded into the form.
Oh, you mean searching to the server from the form?
Okay, what I'm not understanding is, let's say that, okay, when I download the HTML, right now we are hard coding it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can have like thousands of locations. How and one of the things is we want to have just like the way we do concepts, we are going to introduce another step into the wizard where based on the form that you've downloaded, it will suggest the locations that have been, it will download only those locations that you need for this form.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have a search bar up top which will allow the user to add his own location apart from the ones that get automatically downloaded. You can add extra ones, right? So
Yes.
I so before I actually make a call to the server, I would check locally on my device and see if these locations are already present on the device.
Mm-hmm.
So what would I be searching with? Just by name, right?
I think the form will have the name and the ID for that form, for that location, for example.
I think what Sridhar was talking about is like mimicking the add additional concept name workflow, but right now it's like adding the additional location name. So she just want to know what need to be used for searching. So I agree that should search by the location name.
Okay, but the form will come with the ID and the location name, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And
It has
that ID is the ID for, I'm sorry, I'm getting really to the nitty gritties here, but is that the location ID column?
Yes.
Because
correct.
it changes from for example, Chula Imbo is 3 on my database, but it's 7 or something like that on the OpenMRS database, the test
Yes.
server database. So, like, how? I mean, this is not going to work if you're using different servers. Is my if I'm going to be looking on ID.
But you can only link and download from one server. If you change the URL, it will ask you to wipe the data, right? So
Okay. No, my question is in the hard coded thing, right? Like 3 is Chula Imbo, 7 is Turbo, whatever. That will only work if those are the IDs for those particular locations on my server.
oh, I see. You mean like those pre-hard
Yeah, I
coded
think
ones?
if it's not exist, then we shouldn't care about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like how we do concept, if the concept does not exist in the server, then we ignore the concept, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it should just fail silently.
Right. And another thing is we have a class called concept parser, which I think basically parses the XML and the HTML form and finds all the data concepts. It looks for that particular keyword data concepts. How are we going to do this for location? Do I have to create a new parser?
Um,
because right now, when I've touched every layer of like from mUzima Android. I've made a bunch of changes there. I've made a bunch of changes on the search API as well as the mUzima API. So I just
It's a big change.
yeah, it's a big change. It's like going like through the cross section.
Yeah, probably you will need a parser for that location. I think we don't have it.
Yeah, we don't have it. And
Yeah.
like for concepts, we make sure that the form is coded in such a way that all the concepts have this class or some identifier called data hyphen concept, and we look for everything that has this data concept on it and which is not a div, and then we create the list of concept IDs, and then we download matching concept names or the synonyms, right? So the location ID, we'll have to make a change on the forms as well. So I was just wondering, like, when forms, who's going to make the change on the forms and when the forms will be ready, so I can test against my own.
I think if you can copy one of the form and just make some small changes of what you expect.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you what the changes I've been making is on the search API. I've added a new location resource, and in the mUzima API, I've basically added a location service and a location controller on the Android side. I've added the activities for the cohort process as well as a custom location activity which will come under preferences. But to tie it all together, I basically just needed to, understand how the form is.
Sorry guys, I need to go, so I need to jump from the call. Probably just email me.
Okay, sure, no problem.
All right. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.